Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Excited to have you here again today. And we are continuing in on this chapter around learning from adversity on outwitting the devil. And we are towards the end, the last question and answer on page 208 of the book. And I think Rhonda just is in here. She give us the
I'm sorry, it's 224.
224 of the PDF. Okay. And man, we left off talking about how how hypnotic rhythm creates this basically is the pathway for a person's character, that everything
Sorry, correction, 223, 223, I'm sorry.
223. Okay, thank you.
I'm late start today.
It's okay. That's all right. We started talking about character and how that plays into everything, every aspect, relationships. He talked about that in terms of marriage, and all of these things. And so it was getting pretty deep here, as we discovered yesterday. And so Hill actually starts to come, he's like, hold on just a minute, because we started talking about adversity and we get over into character and over into relationships. And so he sees the devil kind of getting into this other realm, but it's necessary. And Hill says, hey, you're leading us into pretty deep water. He says, let's keep it near the shore where I can follow you without fear of getting beyond a safe depth. Go ahead and tell me how this subject of human relationship actually works in the current affairs of a problem-filled world such as we have today. And the devil says, that's a happy thought, but let me make sure you understand the principles I am telling about before I try to show you how to apply them. So he's like, he's about to do a recap here. I wish to be sure you understand that the law of hypnotic rhythm is something that no one can control, influence, or evade. So remember, he's saying you're in this rhythm. There is a rhythm. Now, y'all, I want you to, as we hone in on this word rhythm, I want you to remember, and if you didn't listen to the evening call that we did back in April, one of the things that God talked to us about is that scripture in Matthew, which also talks about the rhythm of grace, that grace has a rhythm. Okay. And so we're talking here about rhythm. And the devil is saying, what rhythm are you in? And that scripture really points to the same thing of God saying, there's a rhythm. There's a rhythm from my side, right? And grace is that rhythm, okay? Working with him, that's a rhythm. Watch the way he does it. That's a rhythm. And so the devil is saying, you cannot, no matter what, you can't escape hypnotic rhythm. You can't escape this pattern of thinking that kind of puts you on an autopilot. He says, but everyone can relate himself to this law so as to benefit by its inexorable operation. So he's like, you can't escape it, but you can learn how to use it for your benefit. Okay. Harmonious relationship with the law consists entirely of the individual changing his habits. Okay, this is a short sentence, but it's a lot. He said, harmonious relationship with the law. If you wish to use this law to your advantage, it is entirely up to you to change your habits so that they represent the circumstances and the things the individual wants and is willing to accept. Bottom line is your habits must match your desire. Your habits must match your desire. I cannot say that I want something different and not be willing to set up a rhythm of habits to get that different thing. He says they have to be aligned. Most often what people do is they say, and especially in business, they say, oh, I want to be $1 million earner. I want to be an RVP. I want to be this or that, but your habits are not such. And then what happens? We turn that into, oh, it doesn't work. when really it was the habits didn't match what I wanted. And then it says, and what you're willing to accept. If you're willing to accept less, your habits reflect that, right? So he says the harmonious working with this law means that you're going to change your habits so they represent the circumstances and the things the individual wants and is willing to accept. No one can change the law of hypnotic rhythm any more than one can change the law of gravity. But everyone can do what? Change himself. Nobody can change the law, but everybody can change themselves. That's empowering. That's empowering, y'all. And that's part of what this book really does, is helps us understand our part. Because when I can understand my part, and then now I can have hope again, because there is no outside circumstance that dictates to me what I have to accept. That's what he's saying here. Everybody, you can't change the law, but you can change you. And that's empowering. He says, remember, therefore, in all the discussion of this subject, that all human relationships are made and maintained by the habits of the individuals related. So he's saying this comes over into relationships. The habits that you have basically is how it forms your character, which is how you relate to other people. All of those things play together. And Sharon Lecter makes a note here. We talked about this yesterday around having tried to change somebody else. Ooh, only to be frustrated when you realize you were not in control and therefore not succeeding. I cannot change anybody but me. I'm the only one. What a lesson we need to learn. That needs to be taught in high school. Stop trying to change people. Okay, don't change your boyfriend, your girlfriend. You can't change them. All right, don't start now. Don't do it after. Right? And so he goes on to say the law of hypnotic rhythm plays only the part of solidifying the factors which constitute human relationships, but it does not create those factors. So it says, whatever your habit is, the way that you think, the law of hypnotic rhythm takes over and makes that solid. It didn't create those thoughts. It just made those thoughts permanent. The way that the habit that you have of thinking, it's so ingrained to have a habit of negativity, negative thinking. If we're brought up in circumstances in which it looks like nothing ever works out, something's always right. And so every time we look at anything else, it's something else might happen. Okay, even if this good thing happens, I can't trust it because something bad might come along with it. He's saying all of those, that pattern of thinking is a habit and it makes itself permanent, but it did not create that habit. It says, before we go further with the discussion of human relationships, I want you to get a clear understanding of the subconscious mind. That's what he means by this. The law of hypnotic rhythm is basically what has dropped down into the subconscious for you, and you're operating out of it and don't even realize you're operating out of it. You don't even realize that. Okay. He says the term subconscious mind represents a hypothetical physical organ which has no actual existence. The mind of man consists of universal energy, some call it infinite intelligence, which the individual receives, appropriates, and organizes in definite thought forms through the network of intricate physical apparatus known as a brain. So this is wordy here, y'all, but he is talking about neuroscience, things that have just really only recently begun to be studied. And when I say recently, maybe 50, 60 years or so. But he's talking about this back in the 1920s, that there is something that exists. Your brain, he says it is There's there's this energy, there's this part of you that receives information, organizes it through this network, and feeds it through the brain. There's something going on back there. That's what he's saying. Okay. And he says these thought forms are replicas of various stimuli which reach the brain through the 5 commonly known physical senses and the 6th sense, which is not so well known. So he's saying that the thoughts that are going on in your subconscious are nothing more than a mirrored version of stimuli. What have you heard, seen, smelled, tasted? What have you experienced based on your senses? Okay. And he says, even in the 6th sense, or the conscious, the spirit, the Jiminy Cricket, whatever you want to call it. Okay. All right. He's like, everything that flows through this subconscious is created by what you have been, the stimulus that has come to you through you. Okay. When any form of stimuli reaches the brain and takes the definite shape of thought, it is classified and stored away in a group of the brain cells known as the memory group. Y'all, it's so exciting for him to be saying this right now, because y'all, over a year ago or so, those of you guys that were with us and we were talking about how the brain works, we were talking about capturing thought, how to actually renew the mind. Okay. And we went through some neuroscience here around how the brain creates literal branches. Thoughts become a physical matter in your brain. Thoughts are things. So it becomes this physical matter in your brain. And what he's saying here is, what happens is, every time you get some sort of stimulus, every time you see something happen, you taste something, you smell something, all it goes and it classifies it with whatever else seems similar. Okay. So it logs that in and puts that in those brain branches, which is why when we're continually seeing the same thing, getting the same information, environment, it goes into the same collective file box, and therefore then becomes part of how I make decisions, how I feel, how I react. Right? So he's saying it's stored in the memory group. All thoughts of a similar nature are stored together so that the bringing forth of one leads to easy contact with all its associates. The system is very similar to the modern office filing cabinet, and it is operated in a similar way. This is huge, y'all, because I want you to think about, take this in, what he's saying. He says that all thoughts of a similar nature are stored together, so the bringing forth of one leads to easy contact with its associates. This works for you or against you. This is why we can tend to make decisions based on past trauma. Okay, because that is that same pattern that has to be broken, because what happens is, I see something that was similar to what I saw when I got hurt, what I saw when I got disappointed, what I saw when I was in pain. I see something similar. It got stored in the same filing cabinet so that it was easier for me. When I see something that might look like a trigger, I categorize it as a trigger and I act accordingly. You see, but the issue has to be, if that is that's a negative use of that filing cabinet, now I have to retrain that trigger to mean something different and put it in a different filing cabinet. Does that make sense? He's explaining it here exactly why renewing of the mind is so key. And being able to relate what we see to God's word, which is truth, not just our past experiences, which are stored in those filing cabinets. You understand? He says the thought impressions with which one mixes the greatest amount of emotion or feeling are the dominating factors of the brain, because they are always near the surface at the top of the filing system, so to speak, where they spring into action voluntarily the moment an individual neglects to exercise self-discipline. So he's saying here that those things that we have the most emotion attached to, good or bad, okay, so that emotion could be pain, that emotion could be hurt, that emotion could be happiness, that emotion could be excitement. He's like, those thoughts, those things that we associate most, that we have the most emotions around, those are the ones that we operate off most, the quickest. Those are the ones that we operate off most of the time, because it's the first and foremost. So honestly, if the thing that I hold on to most is the pain, then that's all I see. That's how I operate. Everything I see through that level of emotion. And that's what he's saying. And he says, those things are ready to just pop off at any time for the one who does not exercise self-discipline, which means I don't take and evaluate each individual situation and say, okay, what's the truth about that? Instead of just acting out of my subconscious and what comes up first. Does that make sense? So he says, they're ready to spring into action voluntarily the moment an individual neglects to exercise self-control. The moment I stop using my mind to think through my thoughts, the moment I stop capturing my thoughts, these things start popping up. The emotion-laden thoughts are so powerful, they often cause an individual to rush into action and indulge in deeds which have not been submitted to or approved by his reasoning faculty. Okay. These emotional outbursts usually destroy harmony in all human relationships. Okay. Y'all ever heard that term TTG? Anybody know what that means?
Train to go?
Yes. Yes, Natalie. My sister, I have one of my sisters who she used to boast about that. She's gotten more spiritually under control now. But train to go means that's an expression people have, that I'm designed. You say the wrong thing, the moment you say the wrong thing, I'm on you. You gonna get it. You gonna hear it. Okay, that's trained to go. Hey, I don't ask any questions. It's time, right? On site. Okay, that's trained to go. And this is what he's really, this is really reminds me of that here. He says the emotion-laden thoughts. You see, this is when you see people who operate out of anger all the time, people who operate out of frustration. They're just always frustrated, they're always irritated. And so no matter what you say, bam, they're ready to pop off at any given moment. Anything can be a trigger. Okay, that's what that means. And so he says, these thoughts, they're so powerful, you'll rush into action, you'll do things, you'll say things that if you were to sit there and think about it, you probably wouldn't have said that. You probably wouldn't have done that, right? And so he says that right there destroys harmony in human relationships. Now, if we take this down to the level of, say, marriage, okay, any relationships that we have, man, have you ever been, any married person, okay, if you ever been in a situation where they just say one more thing, just say one more thing, just one more thing, and it's on. Okay. Right, you become that train to go person. Okay, you just waiting to pop off. But that's what they're talking about there, man. You know, that if we put ourselves in this place where kind of, hanging on to this happened last week, and this happened last month, and this happened last year, and da 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 da, and or I don't like the way you do. I don't like the way you do. Y'all listen. Tony and I had to go buy we have to have two separate toothpaste tubes because he does not like the way I squeeze the toothpaste. And that was a whole issue, okay, that I didn't even know about till one day he goes off, okay. But so, this is what happens in relationships, and we're sitting here hanging on to stuff, but he's like, bottom line, all that is festering, is right there at the surface. And then we start operating out of that. The next thing, the next thing, the next thing. There we go. We mad because the toothpaste tube is not flat from the bottom up. Okay.
It's got to be flat from the bottom up, Jacinta.
Dre, is that you too? Listen, I was like, we about to solve all this. We're gonna have our own toothpaste. Okay. But here we go. And these emotional outbursts usually destroy harmony in human relationships. The brain often brings together combinations of emotional feelings so powerful they completely set aside the control of the reasoning faculty. He says these emotions, they become so prevalent, there's so much on the surface for us that we totally set aside any kind of reasoning around the subject. And he says on all such occasions, human relationships are apt to be lacking harmony. And there you go. Now we walking around for 3 days, can't talk to each other, don't even barely look at each other because of the toothpaste. Right? Or whatever it may be. Now all of a sudden, disharmony. We are out of rhythm for what? Emotions. Right, toothpaste, Pam. We're out of harmony. And he said, and the devil, like, remember, the devil is telling us all this. And he's like, I'm sitting back watching. Here's what's happening. Here's what I created. Watching his creation. Okay. And he says, through the operation of the sixth sense, the brain of a human being may contact the filing cabinet of other brains and inspect at will whatever thought impressions are on file there. So now he's starting to talk about this collective. Okay. The collective. He's really sending a shout out to the mastermind again. Okay. He's saying through the operation of the sixth sense, through the spirit of a man, okay, we're able to recognize, y'all know the Bible says that the spirit recognizes the spirit, right? We begin to harmonize with each other. So he's saying the condition under which one person may contact and inspect the filing cabinet of another person's brain is generally known as harmony. But you may better understand what is meant if I say brains attuned to the same rate of thought vibrations can easily and quickly exercise the privilege of entering and inspecting each other's filing cabinets of thought. This is why Accelerate is what it is. You see, there are certain people who gravitate here. Y'all know we've had plenty of people on who come on one day, they gone the next, okay? We have some people who come and it becomes a habit and they stay. Now, I know there's some that just listen to the replays because of time and things like that. But what I mean is, this is what he's talking about here, is that a spirit of a man, your thoughts, your energy attracts certain energy. And now we get the use of each other as this collective to be able to work together, to learn from each other. That's why you learn so much from each other, no matter who is speaking. We are inspecting each other's filing cabinets. There is harmony here. You know, I often just, I'll often say to people as we're talking about the growth of, this call, that the Lord has just, he's so gracious in how he, how people are attracted here. We're all like-minded people. And I said, I've never had to like kick anybody off the call or press the mute button or nothing. I've never had to remove anybody. Why? Harmony. And that's what he's saying. You people like-minded come together and we get to inspect each other's filing cabinets. And he says, in addition to receiving organized thoughts from the filing cabinets of other brains through the sixth sense, one can, through the same physical organ, contact and receive information from the universal storehouse known as infinite intelligence. So he's saying that spirit is your contact source, not just with other people, but with God himself. It's your point of contact. All information reaching one's brain through the sixth sense comes from sources not easily isolated or traced. All information reaching one's brain through the sixth sense comes from sources not easily isolated or traced. He's saying you can't put your finger on it. That this sort of information is generally believed to come from one's subconscious mind. The sixth sense is the organ of the brain through which one receives all information, all knowledge, all thought impressions, which do not come from one or more of the five physical senses. So again, he's pointing to me what could only be really the spirit of a man, that this is the place where we receive and then can go decipher what do we need to do with this information. And again, that's why the connection with the Holy Spirit is so important, because that's our truth checker. That's the one that says, yep, that's true. Yep, that's true. Nope, that might be a fact, but it's not true. Right? It helps us to decipher. And he says, now that you understand how the mind operates, you will more easily understand how and why people come to grief through improper human relationships. You will also understand how human relationships may be made to yield riches in their highest form, riches in material, mental, and spiritual estates. Y'all listen, I can't tell you, Lord, help me. How old was I before I realized that human relationships should yield this? That I spent a lot of my life thinking it was okay to not be fed mentally, spiritually, materially in any relationship. What I mean is you stay too long in the wrong places. And that this is a check. This is a temperature check right here. He's saying that you must understand human relationships should be yielding material in their riches in its highest form, spiritually. This is why we can all, we can all be together, why we love to be together at events. And, we come from all different areas, but each one of us, this connection here, this tribe here, we receive riches from each other's presence. There's not a draining taking place here. There's not that's key to understand that about relationships. And so many people don't know that. It says, moreover, you will understand there can never be happiness except through understanding and application of the right principles of human relationships. There cannot be happiness except through understanding and application of the right principles of human relationships. You will understand too that no individual is an entity unto himself, that completeness of mind can be attained only by harmony of purpose and deed between two or more minds. He's saying you do not walk in your purpose by yourself. You cannot. You're not an island. You were not designed to just do it all on your own. He says you cannot be completely fully who you are without the harmony of two or more people. He says, you will understand why every human being should, of his own choice, become his brother's keeper, in fact, as well as in theory. He's like, this is why you got to care about the next man. You got to care about the next man, whether he's blood or not. It doesn't matter. I have to care about you, because we are all connected in some way. Hill says, what you say may be true, but I still insist that you have me beyond safe depths of thought. He's like, this is, wow. Okay, this is a little bit deep here. He says, let us get back nearer to the shore where I can wade in familiar water. We shall go out into the deep water after we learn to swim well. It's like, we'll get back out there once we're good, right? And he says, we started out to discuss the subject of how to profit by adversity, but it seems we have drifted somewhat afield from this subject. So Hill's kind of bringing it back in now. He's like, we started out talking about adversity. How did we end up here? And the devil says, we have detoured, but we have not drifted. I do not drift. Okay, he's like, correct yourself, sir. I am still on task. We have done he says the detour was necessary in order that you might be prepared to understand the most important part of this entire interview. We are now ready to get back to the discussion of the subject of adversity. Inasmuch as most adversities grow out of improper relationships between people, it seems important to understand how people may become properly related. So he's basically saying you have to understand human relationships here, because human relationships honestly cause a lot of the adversity. We find ourselves in places of adversity because of the relationships we have. And, remember now, he talked about relationships, not just in terms of marriage or, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, but he also talked about relationships, businessmen. He said, businessmen, successful businessmen know how to relate to their clients, right? People know how to relate to your teammates. He's like, so adversities often come out of not being able to relate correctly in human relationships. So this is a broad category here. And so he says, we're now ready to get back to the discussion. Oh, sorry, I said that already. Naturally, the question arises as to what is a proper relationship between people. The answer is that the proper relationship is one that brings to all connected with it or affected by it some form of benefit. So bottom line is, do you benefit from the relationship? The relationship should be mutually beneficial. It should not be one pulling and one taking. It should not be lopsided. He says, the answer to properly having any relationship is that it is mutually beneficial. If you think about it from the aspect of your clients, you're providing a service for them, that service provides cash flow for you. Your teammates, you provide coaching and mentoring, that provides new outlets for your business. It should be mutually beneficial, he's saying. And if you are not benefiting, then you are not properly relating in that relationship. Okay. Sharon Lecter makes a note here to take a moment to inventory your relationships at home, at work, at play. List the relationships that seem in need of improvement and keep them in your mind as you continue reading. So Hill then says, what then is an improper relationship? And the devil says, any relationship between people which damages anyone. Ugh. Any relationship which damages anyone or brings any form of misery or unhappiness to any of the individuals. Damages. That's a hard one. Okay, that's a hard one. again, not just in romantic relationships, it's so important that people learn to recognize, y'all know, I have, how many of us have ever been in a relationship in which we were damaged, we were hurt, it was traumatic, but we still kept staying there because we thought that's what love is. But you have to be very mindful. You have to be very mindful. Does love get hard sometimes? Yes. But damaging continually, misery, unhappiness, those things are not sign of harmonious relationships. And the same is true in business, that, you may have found yourself here with leadership, with, other people in business who also cause damage, hurt, trauma. The good thing is that you don't have to stay in those environments, though. In any of these instances, you can change your environment. Again, that's, what we're here for. So he's given us clear identity here. What kinds of relationships should you keep around you, and what should you let go? And unfortunately, sometimes these relationships are family. Unfortunately, sometimes they are family, and you have to know how to keep that at a distance. Okay. How can improper relationships be corrected? And here's a very plain, simple way to put it. He says, by change of mind of the person causing the improper relationship, or by changing the persons to the relationship. So he says there's really only two ways you fix this. Either the person that is causing the mess has to decide to change. And remember, we've already read, you're not the one that's going to make them change. They have to decide to change, he says, or you change the people. You get out of the relationship. That's the only way you can do that. And he says some minds harmonize naturally, while others just as naturally clash. Successful human relationships, to endure as such, must be formed of minds that naturally harmonize. Remember how I talked about yesterday, follow the peace. That's another way of putting that. It's a natural, that peace, there's a natural harmonization of the mind. Says, quite aside from the question of having common interests as a means of bringing them into harmony. So he's like, it's not even about the fact that you like the same things. Okay, you put that to the side. That's not the reason that people harmonize. That's not a reason to harmonize. This is because we like the same things. But there's this natural, and to learn to identify that, y'all, is so precious and key, to know how to identify that harmonization with people and when there is not harmony there. He says, when you speak of business leaders who succeed because they know how to pick men, you might more correctly say they succeed because they know how to associate minds with which harmonize naturally. So basically, they look for people that they can come into sync with, like-minded people. They don't try to change anybody into being. Okay. Knowing how to pick people successfully for any definite purpose in life is based upon ability to recognize the types of people whose minds naturally harmonize. And Sharon Lecter makes a note about remembering the definition of a mastermind: harmonious coordination of two or more minds working to a definite end. Well, as we look for, teammates, as we look to build businesses, this is important that you would do that as well. It's not, and that's why the devil says it's not necessarily because we have the same interests. It's not because we think of business in the same way. We all have different versions of how to build what we see here, but there's still harmony here. There is still like-mindedness here. We still can flow in and through and with each other constantly. And you want to look for people like that in business. That's what he's saying. That's how you create success. That's all you see. when you see success versus trying to make somebody whose minds we don't gel, we don't fit together, instead of trying to make that become something. And so Hill says, okay, stay focused on adversity, if you will. If there are possible benefits to be found through adversity, name some of them. Now, here's a whole big old list here. We'll probably just have time to finish this. He says, adversity relieves people of vanity and egotism. It discourages selfishness by proving that no one can succeed without the cooperation of others. So remember, he's talking about here, when you hit a wall, when something gets hard, rather than adversity being your source of frustration, adversity is now your source of creation. It is a jumping off point for you to be creative. Adversity equals creativity. Okay, not frustration. And so he's saying one of the things you're going to get is that you can't have an ego, can't be vain, can't be sitting up here thinking about how great you are. You will have discovered that you still need other people. It says adversity forces an individual to test his mental, physical, and spiritual strength. Adversity makes you look at yourself and say, hey, you're strong enough. You can keep moving. You can keep creating. It thus brings him face to face with his weaknesses and gives him the opportunity to bridge them. My goodness, adversity. He says, this is your opportunity to get stronger, to see where it is you need to improve and come up with a plan for improving that thing. Again, no frustration in adversity, creativity in adversity. That's what I want you to think first and foremost. Always, from here forward, creativity. How do I look at where I was weak and create something better, get stronger? It says adversity forces one to seek ways and means to definite ends by meditation and introspective thought. Now we got it. He says it kind of forces you to go spend time with God because you were so busy trying to get it done on your own. Now you got to look inward. Okay, now you got to think about, you got to meditate. It says this often leads to the discovery and use of the sixth sense or the spirit through which one may communicate with infinite intelligence. And y'all, this is I think this is a real important piece here, kind of bigger than what we may realize, because again, when we attack business, most of the time it's done from our mind and our body. Right? I mean, that's what we're saying we got to get tough in is our mind and our body. But what he's saying here is that hitting you can only do so much. You can only think through it so much. There comes a point where adversity pushes you to come deeper or come higher, which is your spirit. He says, adversity forces one to recognize the need for intelligence not available except from sources outside of one's own mind. I need other people. I need God. I need other people. I need God. That's what he's saying here. Adversity breaks old habits of thought and gives one an opportunity to form new habits. Again, adversity equals creativity. Adversity is your sign that says it's time to change. Breaks old habits of thought and gives one an opportunity to form new thoughts, new habits. Therefore, it may serve to break the hold of hypnotic rhythm and change its operation from negative to positive ends. So there's your chance to break up hypnotic rhythm, break up what's been happening, and go from negative to positive. Okay. Wow. Whew. It's a lot, but it's good. It's good. We're going to stop right here for today. And man, what a it's like you could teach a whole, this just has to be a whole class. I mean, it really does. I don't even know. I honestly don't see how you move forward in business without this being some part of the foundation. We have to know how to deal with this stuff, with learning from adversity. You have to. Otherwise, you always quit too soon. You know, and I think we don't put enough, it's again, we can't put too much emphasis on the physical work that we do without coming back to this part right here, because inevitably the talent will only take you so far, the skill will only take you so far, but there will be that wall. And what do, you know, at that point? So, all righty, y'all. Well, we're going to stop here today. Anybody have anything they want to add? Yes, Miss Linda.
I just think in listening to this, not even just business, but just in your personal life, it's helping me understand when I walk in a room, I can feel an aura. And I know not everybody, I know we went through our gifts and stuff, but really there are people that I've met where other people, outsiders, have come to say, how long have you guys known each other? Do you know each other from school? Did you grow up together? And honestly, you know, there was a gal from who was a city manager in Tracy, and people thought that we grew up from kindergarten or something. I knew the woman maybe 3 months, 4 months, but you know, there's people you click. And that's so cool to find out that's what he's talking about. It's the mind that you get. First, I feel the aura. And then it's like, okay, but you talk, it's like, wow, it's like I've known you for a long, that's where these sayings are coming from. It seems like I've known you for a long time. And in your personal, it's important just in your personal life to be able to know the type of crowd you should be hanging around with. And that's something you get out of, because there are people where you walk away, you're so drained, and it's this, I mean, even in your personal life, can you imagine just in business? And also the confirmation here, because it's funny, you were talking about how we're talking about the thoughts today. I had this last night while I was thinking about, where do my thoughts come from, Lord? While I was going to sleep, I talked to him. It's like, where do my thoughts come? Are they my own thoughts? Are these things that I'm seeing? Make sure that my eyes are open, Lord. Make sure that I'm only seeing the things I need to see, that I see the way you think. And where do my thoughts come from? And here this morning, you're talking about where our thoughts are formed. It's like, oh, thank you. But it is important. And even in business, I've learned to where I call screening people, because it's not the people that need it, it's the people that want it. Because the people that need it, I'm realizing, are the drifters. They need something. But if you have the answer, but if they don't realize and they're not on that mindset, they don't understand, they can see out and go, yeah, that sounds good, but that's just how they are.
Right.
You can work and work and work and work and work with them. And guess what? They don't go anywhere, but you go back 17 steps and you're exhausted and you're tired and you're wondering, what are you doing wrong? It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just, this is actually, that's the answer right there. That's where to understand, we don't need to get frustrated. We just need to think different. Who wants this?
Right, exactly.
Wants this, not who needs this. Everybody needs it. Who wants it? Because the people that want it are the people that are in the same rhythm as you, that will be able to move forward and be successful. So you could be of the same mindset. So adversity, it's very, very interesting. So thank you. I mean, it's a lot. You can teach this on a whole semester.
Yes.
But even as young kids, just to learn this, can you imagine just leaving high school knowing this stuff?
Yes.
You've got it over most of the generations.
Yeah.
I mean, the mindset, and that's where it comes from. Tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. It is so important, so important It's amazing how many drifters I see out there now. It is amazing.
Yes.
Because they're okay with it. That's
Mhm,
the bad. They're okay. They don't know that they can change, and it's all right here.
mhm,
They're looking for a source, a pill, a drug, something, and it's all right here.
mhm.
Wow, today was mind blowing. Thank you.
Yes, yes. You said a mouthful, honey. Linda, you summarized our whole entire business. I work with people that we harmonize. If we are in harmony, we can work together. If we are not in harmony, go find somebody you harmonize with. Okay. Because and it's so true, because when you do work with in harmony, and that doesn't necessarily mean these people are at the same place you are, but like you said, they're open, they see, they're willing. When you do that, it's very easy. What we do is very easy. But when you're trying to, that's how you know you're not in the right space, when this becomes draining. When you're with the wrong folks, it's draining. And the devil right here is saying you should be able to see the indications of the right and the wrong types of relationships, right? Amen. All righty. All righty. Who else want to add something today?
I'm only add something, but it can't be recorded.
Okay. All right. I'll take off. Is there anybody that doesn't mind adding something to the recording?
I like to, Jacinta,
Okay, go ahead, Myra.
to say, I just thank God for what he said so many times through you. I was thinking this morning, I said, Lord, I said, if I've tried to read this book before, while some time back, but I'm thinking, and be honest with you, I don't want to know nothing the devil got to say. That's how, that's how I took it. But I was saying to the Lord this morning and last night, I was thinking, Lord, if Jacinta wasn't doing this, there's no way I could go through this book, because my mind would be on the negative parts, would be stuck on not what the Lord is telling me to how that I can improve my life, but it would be stuck on because of the negativity of what the enemy is doing and what he is saying. So I like to thank God for you for doing this, and also everybody that contributed to it. But one thing the Lord was saying through you really stuck with me is that, I can only change myself. And so many times, especially in relationships, even with our children, mates, husbands, or whatever, we think, oh, I can help this person be better. I can, and we get stuck in bad relationships like that because somehow, I guess, because we had this mother wit, we think we can change everybody. But I thank God for what he said this morning. I can only change myself and pray for everyone else. So I thank God for you as always, and everyone else. Love you all.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I have often said I love this book, but I honestly think it's not as effective reading by itself as it is in a group. I think it requires discussion. I think it requires breaking down in order to really, really get it. So even when I recommend it to people, I always recommend, hey, either go listen to the replays or plug in with us or something, because it needs to be done. It needs to be done as a mastermind. That really to me is the most effective use. So yeah. All righty, y'all. Well, were you gonna say
I
something?
wanted to add something real quick before you turn off the recording, because I want to hear what Ms. Rhonda got to say. But there was a few things that came up yesterday. My heart was so refreshed when I heard spiritual harmony, and then listening to the harmony of relationships today was just really soothing. And I'm I'm very relational. I love people. It's just, I know it's a part of my purpose and my gift. So just finding out and I understanding the natural harmony, just like with the collective, it's just like, I feel like when I came into this space, the relationships. I mean, I feel like I've known many of you all for forever, like y'all my true brothers and sisters, and that's such a beautiful feeling. But there was this thing also that it made me think of that used to always come onto the radio back in my high school days, and every time this guy signed off, he would be like, if you can't change the people around you, change the people around you, you know. And knowing that we can't change anybody, but truly if you in a certain environment and it's not equipped or in harmony, you know, you got to change those people around you. And then the last thing, piggybacking off of Miss Mara and thinking about what we had talked about in the early stages of in our tribal, you know, meetings, maybe when we talk about we can't complete when we're in relationships, we can't complete one another, but what we can do is complement one another. And so that's why I hear that too. And lastly, I was able to record on a video yesterday for some friends that I back in the day hooked up in high school, and they're still married. They married for 20 years. And I was excited because they asked for a recording, and I talked to them because I've always watched them, and now understanding in relationships, not being a, you know, us not completing one another, but complementing. So I also got to share that wisdom through something that I've experienced through their marriage, but also learning through here and to be able to speak about that. So it was really cool too. But other than that, that's all I have.
That's cool.
Love you all.
That's cool. Amen. Amen. All right, y'all. Well, today is Thursday, so we'll be back again on Monday. Right. And what a cliffhanger, but I think it's going to be good. We still got so much more to hop into. So I'm going to stop the recording here. All righty. We'll see the rest of you guys on Monday.